Hey guys, what's going on? This is Word coming at you with a Heart of the Swarm game. This time it's going to be a PvP, and it promises to be a good one. Spawning in the lower right, the blue Protoss on Acheron Wastes. He is from Clarity Gaming, and he is Shew. Although his HOTS tag does say flip-flop. I promise you it is Shew himself. And in the upper left, the Papa Toss, the red Protoss. Everyone knows him and loves him. He is White Raw. And I personally am so glad to see him back with a fervor in Heart of the Swarm. And I'm really looking forward to see his PvP. His PvP has always been phenomenal. I haven't seen him play PvP in Heart of the Swarm yet. And, oh, it's just going to be so good. So, guys, we're here in Acheron Wastes. If you're not familiar with it, which you might not be, because even if you do play Wings of Liberty, and, you know, you play on Acheron Flats, which is the Wings of Liberty version, there are a couple differences here. Notably, these rocks will collapse into destructible debris here if you take them out. And I could be wrong, actually, but I don't think these towers are on the Acheron Flats version. And actually, I'm pretty sure they aren't. I could be wrong, but just in case, that is something to take note of. It's something that we do want to know, because they are actually very, very relevant. I mean, if you watch the GSL at all, you know that they take these towers down after 7 minutes just because they are so advantageous in Wings of Liberty. In Heart of the Swarm, I'm not particularly sure what the difference is. I mean, obviously the new units might play a role in that, but positioning is positioning, and knowing where your opponent's army is and when he's moving out is always going to be very important. So, whether or not they're a little overpowered on this map, we'll see. But it's a mirror matchup. Hopefully everything is rather even. I haven't actually heard too many bad things about this map. I have heard, only complaint I've heard is ZVZ. This is a bad map for it because the rush distance is just so long. It takes so long for your Overlord to get over there. You're never going to be able to scout what your opponent's doing in time unless you want to sacrifice economy, go for a drone scout. Might not be able to react in time, something like that. So these are the complaints I've heard. I don't play ZVZ at a very high level, so I can't, you know, comment on that. I can only share with you what I've heard. And maybe you guys can weigh in some opinions. Let me know in the comments if you're playing ZVZ on this map, Heart of the Swarm, or Wings of Liberty. Just go ahead and let me know what you think. Now, looking at the game, looks like Shew here is going into 2 in each gas with these 2 gases here. And from what I've seen of Shew, of course, he's a teammate of mine on Clarity Gaming, so I've seen his PvP quite a bit more than White Raw's. He definitely likes to put on pressure with an early Mothership Core. Although usually when he does that, he does get a second gate, so looks like White Raw's going to be the one going for a second gate here. Will it be a fast 3 Stalkers? Very likely will be. It looks like the red Protoss White Raw is fully saturating his gas as well. So in PvP, in Heart of the Swarm, Void Rays definitely play a much larger part than they did before. I mean, absolutely, they're so good against Stalkers now. Opening Stargate is generally pretty good. Of course, you do run the risk of being caught a little bit off guard. If you're putting your gas into your Stargate, you don't get your Mothership Core quick enough. Any kind of quick rush could put you a little bit behind. You're going to take some damage unless you really went out for a Void Ray. But usually if you rush a Stargate, you're not going to get a Void Ray. You're going to get an Oracle or maybe Phoenix as something to harass your opponent. You don't need to rush to avoid it unless you're going for a 1 base. Now, it looks like Shew here is going to be expanding off of 1 gate. White Raw, meanwhile, going for those fast 3 Stalkers, and that's still something that is just very, very prevalent in Heart of the Swarm, and it's always good to have those out. We're going to see the Mothership Core out here for White Raw just a little bit before Shew's. And we'll see how White Raw is able to pressure. Now, if you went up to 5 Stalkers, I wouldn't be too surprised. Of course, the benefit of the Mothership Core is when you get enough energy, you can recall back. You don't necessarily need to lose everything. And by the time he gets across the map, he'll be darn close to it. He's also going to be able to get a scout on that Nexus, which he hasn't seen yet. So it's going to be very important. We actually don't have scouting for either of these players, which is pretty interesting. I believe they scouted their main and naturals, or at least Shew did, just to make sure there was no proxies coming in. But other than that, they're generally pretty safe. This map is quite large, so most rushes aren't going to hit very, very quickly, except, of course, a 4-gate. But with the Mothership Core, those things are relatively easy to defend. Now, we do see White Raw has set up a proxy pylon here, coming out here with 3 Stalkers. He also has a Stargate on the way. Mothership Core going to have just enough energy for a recall. Of course, can also use a Time Warp. Looks like a Hallucinated Phoenix is going to come out here, take some shots at the Mothership Core. White Raw, seeing he's taking no damage, is going to be pretty easy to tell that nope, that's a Hallucinated Phoenix, not real. Gotta be so careful about this Mothership Core, though. It is very weak to Stalkers. It is armored. It will take extra damage, and it is kind of made of balsa wood here. Meanwhile, the Hallucinated Phoenix from Shew going to come and see if there's an expansion for White Raw. But now we're going to see the damage is going down. The Time Warp actually going to catch at least 1 Stalker, and also going to see a Sentry go down. The Mothership Core barely surviving. White Raw is now going to start hitting this Nexus. Still hasn't put his own Nexus down. Shew has a Robo up. He's working on getting that Immortal out. Will he be able to save this Nexus, though? The Immortal is going to come out It's about halfway done. Got to worry about that time warp. White Raw does not have enough energy for another one here. This Nexus can tank a lot of damage. 5 Stalkers firing on it pretty consistently, though, are going to do a good job. And I love the positioning of White Raw's Mothership Core. He's able to keep an eye on those units without risking taking too much damage. And, of course, he can try to pick off units that venture too close to the cliff as well. But there, the Mothership Core comes out for Shew. He's able to get a nice force field on, trapping some of those Stalkers. Gets the Photon Overcharge on the Nexus. It is dealing those damages. And it looks like it is going to be enough to knock White Raw back. And, ooh, that looked like it hurt. Very nice save there. With this Immortal out, he is pretty much guaranteed to have a nice save on the Nexus in terms of the units lost. We see Shew is a little bit behind. I believe he lost a couple of sentries there. So, resource-wise, it was a little bit heavier investment. But both of their... oh, no, actually, Shew did lose his Mothership Core for that. So I was going to say, okay, almost both of their Mothership Cores survived. It looks like White Raw has made an Oracle. Does he have a second one on the map? No, none in production either. A single Oracle going to be coming in, but Shew is well prepared for it. Is going to knock it away. Got to be so careful about those Oracles, guys. They will wipe out your mineral line in seconds. If you were out of position, even by a little, you were going to be in big trouble. But now we have the 2 Immortals coming in. Is White Raw going to bring the Oracle in this fight? Yes, he's going to start focusing down those sentries. Look how quickly they are dying, but it looks like the Oracle is going to suffer the same fate. Now, there are quite a few Stalkers here, but with these 2 Immortals, it should be enough to knock him back. White Raw, though, is doing a great job of keeping Shew back while he builds up his army. He's switching into Void Rays. Income-wise, we've got 34 probes for Shew, 32 for White Raw. That's slowly climbing up, just a slight advantage. Slight advantage there for Shew, because White Raw's expansion was a little bit later. Wasn't able to produce probes out of both neck side, but it is starting to catch up now. Proxy Pollen's still here, definitely going to be useful later in the game. And now things are starting to stabilize. Looks like Shew is going into a bit more Wings of Liberty-esque, I should say. Composition, adding his Twilight Council on. And White Raw, meanwhile, is going for a Stargate. So we see he's got the single Void Ray in, quite a few Stalkers. Got to be worried about those Immortals of Shew, though. Probably stop that Stalker production relatively soon. He actually is adding on a second Stargate there, so he's going into full-on Sky Toss. How is it going to work? Well, probably pretty well. The Void Rays are absolutely amazing, and obviously their #1 counter in Wings of Liberty was Stalkers. In this case, though, they do very well versus Stalkers, so in order to combat Void Rays, you're likely going to need a little bit of a higher tech, especially mass Void Rays. Storm is going to be extremely useful if it does get to that situation where we get into like a 3-base, where White Raw has a large portion of his army comprised of Void Rays. Shew is definitely going to want that Storm, and in fact, we do see that he is going for a Templar Archives. I don't know why I'm looking for it. I can just click on the thing. Gotta love the new production tab. There it is. Upgrade-wise, we don't see anything for either of these players. Just the Warp Gate. That is all. It's going to be 2 Stargate versus a Templar Immortal composition. And Archons are seeing so much more use in mid to late game PvP now. They suck up damage very well. And of course, they don't take that extra damage from Void Rays that they used to. We see Shew is going to be going here for charge. So both guys pulling back into a defensive position. I love White Raw's pro positioning here. He's going to keep an eye on the third of his opponent. And you're definitely going to want to be taking this third in this particular matchup and on this particular map. It's easy to block off with these destructible rocks. The Zealot Warpins are only going to come from one direction. You can put cannons to defend your Nexus. I mean, here they can come from the left. You might bring a Warp Prism up near the top. It's a little bit harder to defend, but he's going to be taking this one at the top here. And depending on his army positioning, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Especially since it's mostly on foot, and these rush distances are a lot closer than these ones in the early game until you break down these rocks. A lot of it does depend on the matchup. We do see Shew going for Storm here. If you take a look, he has seen both Stargates, so that's a perfect decision from the blue Protoss here. Storm, as I said, is going to be very useful versus the Void Rays, which are getting up there for White Raw. He's got 4 Void Rays out, producing them 2 at a time. Do we have air upgrades on the way? Yes, starting with that air armor, as a matter of fact. Which is interesting. I mean, you'll see air armor mostly in things like Phoenix versus Phoenix PvP, but for such a damage beast like the Void Ray, I feel like the +1 attack would be a little bit more useful. Because you can see those unbuildable plates, or whatever they happen to be called, never stood a chance. Unbuildable rocks in this case. That's the map around. So, okay, we got a few Templar out here for Shew. Now, the thing about the Templar army, it's not very mobile, and it's not the best aggressive army. You know, I mean, if you come out, obviously, Templar are very slow. So it can be a little tough. And, of course, White Raw's going to have time to prepare. He's going to be able to split his army in advance, spread against the storms. White Raw actually placing a pylon over there in the natural. Shew's going to be coming out here. He's got the +1 on his units. Of course, his charge is finished as well. White Raw not going for those ground upgrades. He is mixing in Immortals, though, and Immortal Void Ray is such a good composition. We're going to have to see how the storms of Shew are able to match up. The third base is up and running for both of these players, though. White Raw opting for the little pocket base. The probe count's getting relatively even there as well. And now it's time for both these players to sit back and macro up, but now we do have a Warp Prism out here for Shew. Do I want there to be storm drops? Yes, I do. And oops, it looks like I pressed the F button there, so we're going to go a little bit more forward. Sorry about that. I'm going to press back now and try to fix that up. I meant to follow the Warp Prism, but anyway, Warp Prism is going to be coming out. Now we're back in time, guys. Now, do I hope there will be storm drops? Absolutely yes, but of course, generally you're going to want the Warp Prism speed for that, and he's also got to consider the fact that White Raw has his air army out, so it's going to be a lot easier to catch this Warp Prism. I mean, Void Rays aren't the fastest things in the world, but if they latch onto that Warp Prism, it's going to take very quick damage, and you just can't be as safe in airspace as you might be otherwise. It looks like, however, he is going to be going for a Warp-in base thing, and I like that. It's not too much of an investment. Losing a couple Templar in that army, especially when the main damage output of your army is storms, that would be absolutely devastating. We're also going to see a second Warp Prism coming out here from Shew, so he's going to be going for that multi-pronged harass, and this is good. He needs to keep White Raw back. At the moment, White Raw's army is very strong, and since so much of the battle is going to depend on White Raw's positioning, if he splits very well against Shew's storm, Shew just can't do anything about it. So keeping his opponent pinned back with this harass is going to allow him to get up a mega composition. We see that he is getting that +2 up. He's going to get these upgrades up as well. And that's going to allow him to deal with this army a little bit better. Now, White Raw's moving out here. Let's see, the Void Ray count is up to a grand total of 9. That is a ton of damage, and Shew's actually going to see them coming out with that Observer and this spot on the tower. And he's going to have to defend his 4th base against this. Of course, White Raw saw his opponent move into here with the proxy pylon. It's likely that he's going to be taking that base as well. And now Shew is looking to intercept these Void Rays a little bit. Upgrade timing-wise, his level 2 weapons are about to finish. White Raw does have his +1 air armor done. He is moving into Colossi as well, so Colossus Void Ray, a very powerful composition with these new Void Rays. Absolutely stellar. Looks like the Warp Prism here for White Raw, or for Shew is going to be coming in now, and he's warping in several Zealots here. The +2 weapons are going to finish too. How quickly are the Void Rays going to be able to kill them, though? It looks like actually pretty quickly. He does activate that. Oh god, that Warp Prism never stood a chance. He does activate the, I forget the actual name of it, but the extra damage versus armored obviously won't be particularly useful versus the Zealots. Oh, Shew blinks up. He's going to be able to snipe both these Colossi. Looks like the Storm's going on absolutely everything. A lot of Shew's units as well. He's going to storm those Void Rays. They're all clustered together, taking damage. It's so hard to save those Void Rays or split them properly. And it looks like Shew is just going to recall. Very nicely done. Takes out a couple Colossi, but he took some serious hits with that as well. It looks like he lost all of his Stalkers. His Warp Prism went down. How many probes did he kill with that Zealot Warp? And not a lot. So he threw a lot of investment into that. And White Raw has a little bit of momentum now. All his Void Rays survived. He's up to a total of 10. He's going to want those Colossi, though. Thermalant's going to be finishing shortly. Probably not going to move out before that's finished. So Shew is going to have to build up this army. He's adding on dual Stargates of his own. He's got a lot of Templars making some Archons too. It's going to suck up a lot of damage from the Colossi and the Void Rays. And Archons are actually going to be pretty good against the Void Rays as well if they do cluster up. Meanwhile, Shew is going to be mixing in his own Void Rays. And of course, his Warp Gate count is very, very high because that is where the majority of his resources are going. White Raw's 4th base coming up as Shew's has finished. He's about to saturate that now. Sending some probes over. Not sure from where, though. It says 12 of 24 workers, so I'm assuming... there they are. There they are. There's the money train coming right on over. So we're seeing composition-wise for these players. Let's take a look, because this is interesting. We're watching the metagame develop before our very eyes. We're seeing Colossus Void Ray, a lot of Zealots here, a few Zealots for White Raw, mixing those in. Doesn't have charge, doesn't have a ton of ground upgrades. He's got the 1-1, Shew with the level 2, level 3 on the way. And of course, he's focusing a lot on the air weapons and armor. He does have the +1 coming up. Whereas Shew's army, he has Archons, a lot of Templar, and it's kind of like in ZVZ how you respond to a lot of Speedlings, or if your opponent has speed well before you can get it, well, you're like, okay, I'm going to get Banelings to defend, to play defensive. Shew obviously cannot catch up with the Void Ray count, so he went for Storms to try to counteract that instead of trying to just match his opponent. Obviously, White Raw's Stargate was out a lot earlier than his, so he would have been a little bit behind. Breaks down those rocks, pushes White Raw's army back, and wow, this Colossus... He needs to go to some physical therapy because his legs are acting up a little bit. It's going to be very tough for Shew to charge in here, though. White Raw has such a good angle. Shew's going to charge in here. He's going to be coming around the corner. The Colossus are going to get so many free swipes. So White Raw moving in here. It's a very good angle for him to come in. And the Void Rays of Shew are in there, but it's not the biggest number, and it can be a little scary. However, the Storm's going to do so much damage against this army. He's got to be so careful. The Void Rays are going to be hitting everything as the Zealots charge in. The Storm's going to smash onto all these Voiders. You see a lot of them are getting taken out, but will it be able to kill everything fast enough? The Immortal's doing tons of damage to the Colossi. More Storms going down. It looks like finally the Voiders are starting to get cleaned up. He needs to finish just the last 2 off, and it will go down. Shew, however, does lose his Nexus. Who lost more in that battle? Looks like White Rod did, as the Resources Lost tab has evened up. Shew still has 3 Templar remaining. He's producing more Void Rays, and with these Void Rays, he is going to be able to chase the Colossi down as well, as long as he can get a lock on them. Otherwise, they move at the same speed, and he won't be able to catch them. So no, White Rod is going to retreat. If those Void Rays had been able to attack, he would have just been able to follow those Colossi home, kill them very quickly, and that would have been a nice victory for Shew. So very smart there from White Rod to get out of there. His Observer is actually with this army, seeing everything, but it is going to get pulled into the cannon, and it is going to go down. So now we see everything's kind of stabilized a little bit. These guys, looks like White Rod has a massive probe lead, though. 84 to 55, of course, with the takedown of this army. He killed quite a few probes as well. But army supply-wise, it looks like Shew is in the lead, and sometimes in PvP, that can make all the difference in the world. And by sometimes, I mean 90% of the time. Depends how long these guys do sit back and go into macro mode. We see a warping of Zealots from White Rod going to work on taking this base here. White Rod doesn't... Okay, no, he does have charge, and he is able to pick off that Zealot there. This proxy pylon coming into play. I'm not sure how useful, like, we saw the Zealot get splashed away with the new physics, but he was surrounded by charge lots, so it didn't necessarily make any sense. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand these things. He's going to try to take down this Nexus, but it looks like Shew is going to be able to save it. Take a look at the upgrades for these players. Plus 3 weapons for Shew and 2-2 for White Rod. He does have level 3-3 on the way. Shew is having to deal with all these Zealot Warpins, but with a nice wall-off of pylons here, the Nexus is not going to be able to get surrounded. Looks like the cannon's not quite going to be up in time, though. And it's going to pull his army into all sorts of directions. And, you know, without the Colossi in, it's just going to be a little bit later that he reaches this army to defend it. And the Colossi don't move any faster, but they do have the range. And, oh, this proxy pylon from White Rod being so annoying. It looks like he will be able to get the Nexus this time. Meanwhile, taking a 5th base over at the 1 o'clock. Shew going to try to come back and save that, but no. White Rod going to try to take out as much infrastructure as he can. Doesn't have a lot of bank to burn, though. Dumped about 2,000 or more minerals into those multiple Zealot Warpins. And now we're seeing the composition start to even out. We see a lot of Zealot, Immortal, Archon. The only difference is that White Rod has Colossi. How useful are they going to be, though, against the Immortal and Void Ray count of Shew? We're going to have to see. It looks like Shew is going to be pushing out here. Mothership Core with the army. Going to use those Time Warps to the best of his advantage. White Rod's in a defensive position, though, and again, like I was saying before, he can spread his Templar against, or spread his Void Rays against those Templar. It's just something I'm so not used to saying that it's hard to wrap my lips around it. Like, oh god, he's going to spread his Void Rays against Storms? What? Does this ever happen except in 4v4s and free-for-alls? Not sure, but here, the damage is going to be coming in. The massive Void Rays for both these players doing some good damage, but the Storms are going to blanket everything with serious power, and it looks like all the Void Rays for Shew are surviving, while the rest of the Void Rays are getting focused down for White Rod. He does have superior supply, though. The Immortals are eating these Storms up quite well with a big Warping of Stalkers. Is he going to be able to take this back? I don't think so. These Void Rays are doing huge damage. The Time Warp going to slow down the reinforcements as well. Void Ray coming in here for White Rod, but again, Shew's count is so big that it doesn't look like he can overcome it, and now Shew is going to start pushing in to the main. Meanwhile, a Zealot Warping for him over at the right side is going to start doing damage to that base, but is going to get taken down by the cannons. Can he take down this third? Looks like the Robo Facility has been underpowered. This guy is aghast. He's like, no, what have you done? It looks like with the Nexus getting focused down, ooh, very cool shockwaves. White Rod is going to lose that. Army-wise, what does White Rod have? It looks like he has a Zealot Warpin making its way over to the 4th of Shew, and with no cannons here to the 3rd, I should say. It's going to be completely undefended, but is White Rod going to be able to survive long enough for that attack to be worth it? Army-wise, all he has are those 6 Zealots attacking his opponent's base. He has nothing else. Shew's army looking unstoppable with all those Void Rays in the air. Nothing that White Rod can warp in is going to be able to combat them. And of course, every Void Ray he makes is just going to get camped and picked off. The Zealots here are going to get this Nexus. What does Shew have back at home to defend? He is making a couple Void Rays, and of course, that should be just enough to clean up those Zealots. They can't shoot up. That should equal their death. We do have a Dark Shrine on the way here for White Rod, but is it going to survive? No, it looks like Shew is going to focus it down immediately, getting rid of that counterattack option for his opponent. And White Rod does not cancel it, so the limited bank that he does have will not be replenished. The Void Ray is going to work on cleaning up these Zealots. Shew doesn't need these probes right now. He just needs to clean up his opponent's production. He's going to focus down these pylons, make sure there's no reinforcements. White Rod's bank is a little bit bigger than Shew's, but he just can't make the units he needs to counter this. White Rod's base up here is still going strong, though. The problem is he's not going to have anything to build. The Zealots here have cleaned up almost all the probes for Shew. He has 12 probes remaining. He's going to start working on this Nexus. The Void Rays trying to take them down. And the Void Rays are pretty good, but they still don't chew up Zealots particularly quickly. Now, it looks like Shew, having unpowered everything in the main, will probably start working on taking out the mining of his opponent. The army supply is 77 to 10. It doesn't look like White Rock can come back from this sort of thing. He's putting up a lot of cannons. He's starting to remake his production. He's got the Mothership Core. He can cast that Photon Overcharge, which, you know, is going to help. The thing is, he's just completely cleaned out Shew's economy. 12 probes left. All the necks are gone except for the one in the main. Only 121 minerals in the bank. If, by some miracle, if the cannons are able to pick off a lot of Void Rays, if the Photon Overcharge can take out some of these expensive units somehow, if he cleans up this army, Shew literally has nothing, whereas White Rat at least has a something of an economy to fall back on. And oh, the Dark Shrine is out! He remade it over at his 5th base. His Warp Gate's finishing in too. We do still have the Proxied Pylon here. And do we have an Observer for Shew? We do. Where is it? It's over here at the main, so if he warps in these DTs to fight the army, Shew could lose a lot of ground army. His only hope is going to be to storm those DTs, which is a guessing game at best. Where is White Rock going to be warping those in? We have 3 DTs. Where are they? I gotta click on them before they go. Where are they? All right, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use my resources. Here we go. He's getting in with this army. Photon Overcharge cannons here. Where's the Photon Overcharge? There it is on the Nexus. This is the best defensive position that White Rock can be in. Is he going to be able to hold? Shew is getting pushed back, but he does take down the Nexus with the incredible DPS of the Void Rays. The DTs, though, are starting to push him back. That Observer for Shew is still just sitting in the main. It's not coming back over. It needs to be with this army. There's only 3 Void Rays left for him. White Rock is remaking this Nexus. He's still got his Mothership Core up, so by the time this Nexus is up, he will be able to Photon Overcharge again. Army supply 38 to 12. It is dropping down. This is that situation. The only hope that White Rock has. Shew can't remake his economy. He's only got 12 probes left. I'm not even sure where they are. They're long distance mining in an attempt to try to get enough money to remake a Nexus. Now it looks like he has taken out those DTs. There's 2 DTs and a single Archon left for White Rock. Where are those units? Looks like they're back at his main, warping in a couple more DTs. Will he make Archons with them? Probably will. He knows the Observer is with Shew's army now. He needs these guys in fight mode. This is a tough position. It's interesting. If these Void Rays cluster, they don't kill Archons super quickly. I mean, 5 Void Rays kills anything pretty fast, but it's not the maximum damage output that you would want. Looks like it's going to be coming in. He's also going to be engaging into these cannons, too. That's something to take extreme note of. That is good DPS from these cannons. Looks like the DT over here picking off the probes that are long-distance mining as well. Shew did manage to get another Observer out there, though, so he does have 1 at home and 1 with his army. Going to pick off this Pylon, too, unpowering about half of those cannons. White Rock making a backup Pylon there. He's going to bring this Archon in. Does not want to lose that so valuable. Oh, be so careful. White Rock got to be careful. Looks like the Mothership Core does get focused down. He's taking damage from those. Oh! Shew loses an Archon. This is a tense position. 38 to 10 still. Still a little bit of long-distance mining going. It looks like the engagement is going to happen. Oh, God. Archon getting picked off. It's still looking very much in favor of Shew right now, but all the units he has are not very effective against Archons, and White Rock's playing this out very well, but the Pylon's going to go down! All the cannons are going to be unpowered. There's no Mothership Core. Shew can just go in here and start taking out the units of White Rock. There's literally nothing to defend. A single Dark Templar on the other side of the map is not quite going to cut it, and it looks like it's over for White Rock. The Storm going to catch a lot of the probes as well. Oh my God, the damage! White Rock, unit-wise, he's got 7 probes, 1 DT, and there it is. GG! What a game. What a PvP. Thank you, Shew, for giving me that replay. It was a very cool game there. We did have a Nexus building in the lower left section, but it looks like with the loss of those probes, White Rock just did not have a chance of coming back. That was very cool, guys. I hope PvP gets to these crazy stages more and more as we see more Heart of the Swarm. And it looks like I've got about half hour till Vengeance starts from the time I'm casting this, so hope you guys have watched it as well, because this will be up after Vengeance is over. Thank you for watching this, guys. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. Subscribe button should be right there on the screen. It's also right there above the video player. If you're watching on sc2cast.com, you can access it via the clicking on the screen. Really would appreciate it. It does help, and thanks so much. I'll see you guys at the next cast. Word up.